Hello everyone, welcome to AviaCast. My name is Ayush Mishra and today I'm joined by Mr. Rohit Tomar, just like last time. Mr. Rohit, would you like to introduce yourself really quick?
Thank you so much. As we discussed last time, my introduction, I've been with the aviation industries for about 20 years, various aspects, right from financing, operations, consulting, and strategy. And thank you so much for having me here. We'll have a very interesting discussion today, I guess.
Yes, so last time we'd actually discussed the rise and fall of Kingfisher Airlines and specifically the story of Vijay Mallya, the mastermind behind Kingfisher Airlines itself. But we ended up discussing a lot about finances. And then I realized that a lot of our audiences who might tune in or out might not actually know much about what the inner goings are like. Who actually buys the airlines, who actually owns the airlines, who pays the money, etc., etc. Sorry, I just threw the remote there for a second. So what we're going to do today is actually engage in a bit of basics. So starting off there, Mr. Rohit, so for example, I as a random Tom, Dick and Harry, I go and book a ticket. I book a ticket with, say, Emirates, right? So what I'd like to know is, does Emirates actually own the flights that they fly me from, say, here to Dubai, or how does it actually work?
Oh, you're right. Aircraft are extremely high capital investments. You can look at a smaller aircraft like an Airbus or a Boeing, being about 70 million, 72 million. If you look at the bigger ones, they can be as high as 150 to 200 million, depending on the kind of aircraft. So a lot of the airlines do not really own the aircraft. They have a mix. They will own some of them and they will lease some of them. So there are, if you look globally, almost about 40-45% of the aircraft that are currently operating in the world are actually leased aircraft. They're not owned by those airlines which are flying them. And that number is significantly higher if you look in Asia. In Asia, if you just look at the Asian population, almost about 65% of the aircraft operating in Asia are leased aircraft. They're not owned by the individual airline which are actually flying them.
But what's the case for this? I mean, if you're flying something so big, if you're transporting so and so many people, making a lot of money out of it, wouldn't you want to own the product and actually take care of the product yourself? I mean, how does that work?
That's so true. I think typically, yes. If you look historically, the first leasing company that was formed in the world was in Ireland called Guinness Peat Aviation, GPA. And you'll be surprised to know who was the owner of that company. The owner of that company was a guy called Tony Ryan. And now you know the name Ryanair.
Oh!
So he was the guy who started the aviation leasing business.
Okay.
And over a period of time, a lot of people, expanded that. We have someone whom we all call as the father of aviation leasing. This guy, Mr. Steve Huezi. Who back in the days really crystallized this form of aviation. Now you see, let's look at it both sides, right? If you look at the aircraft manufacturers, they want to manufacture aircraft. They are in the business of manufacturing aircraft. All the aircraft manufacturers get a lot of subsidy from the government because it is such a capital intensive process in terms of doing research and development on the aircraft, the engines, then getting the final production line, manufacturing the aircraft and then delivering it. So if you look at an aircraft life cycle from an aircraft manufacturer perspective, it's close to about 25-30 years from the time the first aircraft is made.
Correct.
So for them, they need to recover the cost of the research and development. They need to make their margins, blah, blah, blah. Every company is at the end of the day trying to make profit. So for them, they need to be able to produce aircraft and someone has to buy it. Right? But the people who are there to buy it, now if you look at a lot of airlines in Asia, you will see the historic rise of either AirAsia, you look at Indigo, you look at SpiceJet, you look at V8Jet, all of these airlines. No one really has that kind of capital sitting with them to put all of that money into an aircraft. Even just to get the first aircraft, it will cost you, let's say about today's world, let's say 70 million. Approximately.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, in a business, 70 million is huge money. You really cannot just go and put that into an asset and expect your whole business to run. So that is where leasing became an opportunity for airlines, because in the leasing business, you have a lessor who is very well versed with aircraft. They are very specialist people. They are people who understand aircraft, who understand how does an aircraft value deteriorate or appreciate or move in the market. And based on that, these are the guys who finance these aircraft from the manufacturer to the user. So what aircraft leasing largely did was suddenly made capital available for all these guys who did not have too much amount of money to start the business with. They had money, but they would rather put it in operations and not in the aircraft.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right? So that's how this whole industry became so, prominent and became so valuable. One of the reasons why you also see a significant shift or the growth of leasing business is because of Asia as a region, which is a unique story.
Okay.
If you look at America, you look at Europe, the aircraft finance, which is, let's say, if you take a car today and you want to buy a car today and you go to a bank and you say, I want to buy a car, can you finance? The guy will give you, let's say, 70-80% of the loan. But imagine you want to start an airline tomorrow and you walk into a bank in India and say, you know what, I want to buy one aircraft, can you give me 80% of the loan? The guy will look at you as if he's seeing, some person from a different planet altogether. Because they don't know how to finance it. And
Correct.
The reason why they don't know how to finance is because financiers or bankers do not have the expertise on identifying or being able to predict how the value of that asset is going to change against the loan. And the worst case scenario, if something happens to you, what is the bank going to do with the aircraft? He can't fly it. It's not his job to fly it. What is he going to do with the aircraft?
So it's not a product he understands.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is the reason why it would be very difficult for you, if you were to plan to start an airline tomorrow, to be able to finance it. But that was not the case in the Americas and the Europe, because you had banks which had experience in aircraft financing, and they were largely okay to take that kind of a risk on the asset, because, well, you had Europe, you had Airbus, who was the manufacturer of that aircraft type. And in US, you had Boeing, who was the manufacturer of that specific aircraft type. People did have expertise in that. And then they started realizing, why don't we start a business where, knowing that we have this knowledge of aircraft financing, which a lot of other people might not have, local banks in different countries might not have, and use that to offset this business opportunity. So the theory that the way it's simply ways around is, let's say, for example, if you go today to take a car loan, and in the car loan, if you take a car loan, let's say you have to pay an interest rate of 8%.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's say tomorrow I'm a guy, I come to you and say, you know what, you're buying the car at 8%. You're taking the loan from the bank. Don't do that. I will finance the car and I will finance it at 6%. So obviously you as a business guy would say, I'm getting 2% cheaper from myself rather than the bank. Why would you go to the bank? You would rather go to the guy who's offering it to you cheap and take the aircraft from them. So that is how this business became so big. And to an extent, it's a problem of, so today airlines realize the challenges that they have with leasing businesses, and lessors have their own challenges. But this is where this behemoth of leasing industry was set up. You have, all these aircraft being very easily financed. You have lessors who are ready there to pay the money. You have airlines who want to constantly keep growing the aircraft. The guy wants to, bring in 100, 200 aircraft order every year, 100 aircraft. Simple logic. One aircraft, 70 million. 100 aircraft, how much it's going to be, right? Yeah. So with that kind of number, you don't have that much amount of cash sitting on your balance sheet to finance it. So who's going to finance it? The banks cannot take that much amount of risk. So obviously it has to be financed by third parties. And that's how this leasing business became what it is today, where it is such an important part of the aviation ecosystem.
So it only began with like a handful of lessors, mostly in the West.
Yes.
The US and Europe.
And the Europeans. And that's how we started seeing Ireland became a big center. Ireland actually became the hub.
Is it still the hub?
It is largely the biggest hub of aircraft leasing.
Oh.
And that actually has nothing to do in reality with, having some kind of a unique aircraft knowledge. No. The only reason it is the hub is because it formulated a lot of tax and financial policies in a way which could allow companies to set up leasing companies, because leasing companies are nothing but trade companies, right? You're not really operating the aircraft. As a lessor, I don't operate the aircraft.
Correct.
My job is to finance the aircraft,
Yes.
manage the aircraft, and that's it, right? So these were the guys who Ireland supported that a lot in terms of it had one of the largest number of double taxation agreements with a lot of countries, and that is important because when you lease an aircraft from that jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, let's say from Ireland to India, and you are paying the rents from the Indian company is paying rent to the Irish company, you don't want taxation to be involved. It should be net of taxes.
Yes.
So Ireland had a lot of double taxation agreements with a lot of countries. That enabled a lot of airline lessors to set up business there and use that as the hub to start leasing out to other countries.
What I'm hearing is that essentially Ireland created a cross-border special economic zones specifically for lessors.
That's correct. And I mean, everyone else followed. Look at it. Singapore followed it, but Singapore came pretty late into the market. Ireland still remained at the top.
When did these Irish operations begin?
Oh, this I think goes back in early 1980s.
Oh,
it's that back. And obviously, Guinea Speed Aviation, Ryanair was from Ireland. That was the first one. So a lot of these lessors, which are based out of Ireland, it's still the biggest hub.
Okay.
Then you have Singapore, which has been picking up very strongly, especially for Asia Pacific, for two large reasons. One is that the people who were sitting on a lot of leasing companies which are based out of Ireland still needed people to connect with the Asian customers to be able to do transactions, and it felt it was better to have a lot of offices in Singapore as a financial hub. Anyways, Singapore is a big financial hub in the Asia region.
Correct.
So it made more sense for them to have people in Singapore, which could then reach out to the Asian market and connect with them for the business.
It's quite central also, geographically speaking.
Correct. So that was the second one. The third one has been China, which has done a fantastic job in setting up the aircraft leasing business in China. And now the fourth one, obviously, India is trying to do the same thing with Gift City in Ahmedabad, which is being touted as, they're trying to make that as a leasing hub for India, and probably look at transactions outside of India.
So what are some of the challenges do you think India might face on being prominent within this sector?
In the leasing business, the challenge that India has is they've not created the leasing ecosystem. You can learn a lot from looking at different countries on how they set up leasing. But then you need to identify in any policy making or in any strategy, what are the critical players who are there. The assumption that 10 years back something worked, which means it will work today, is incorrect. Because any business which has become important for that region has identified the critical factors for that business to remain with them.
Correct.
So they have already started building up defenses so that other countries cannot easily copy the same system. Otherwise, everyone would be a leasing hub. Then tomorrow Ireland will not be called a central hub, because if everyone has a leasing business by itself, or becomes a leasing industry itself, there is no require for Ireland.
So is India trying to then take a cookie cutter approach to this?
Largely, yes. So they understand the theory to a large extent, and they've been trying to make policies around that theory. But the number of players that are required to build an ecosystem have not been put in place. And the second challenge is, when it's so simple, when you make a business and as a novice, when you go to an investor, the guy will ask you a business plan for 5 years or 10 years. He will ask you, what's your plan to make profitability? How are you going to do it? But when we started developing, or when India started developing this, there is no clear-cut roadmap. The roadmap is we would become the next hub. Okay, fine, great. Yes, you will become the next hub. But for becoming that, what do you need? It's like you going to an investor and saying, please invest $1 million to me. I will make it $50 million in 5 years. And you expect him to put the money and you don't want to give him any answer. If he asks you, okay, how will you do it? What is your business model? What are the risks? Your answer is, don't matter about that. I will turn it to 50 million.
I just want to make a joke for a second, but I hope you remember the Lakshmi Chitput from Hera Fairy.
So that's been the challenge. I mean, does India have the opportunity? Absolutely. Guys, we are looking at 1,000, 2,000 aircraft to be growing in the next 10, 20 years.
Correct.
Right? Do we have the ability and the opportunity to do it? Yes, you do. A lot of times you see, one of the things that has been a challenge is uh, the thought of saying, oh, it is too, it's like a rocket science, like, oh, we have no idea how it is going to work. But that's all false. If you look at the largest leasing companies in the world and you start drawing back where those leasing companies, who's the ultimate owner, where did the fund come from, where did the money come from, you will start seeing that all of these actually go and form a single or maximum two sources where the money comes from.
Okay.
And these are your funds, which are private equity funds or large funds which are managing the money of US and Europe. Whether you talk about Oaktree Capital, some of these funds that we would generally hear in real estate and other places, but you would not directly hear them in aircraft leasing because they don't do it by their name. They have a subsidiary or they have special entities, special funds who manage it.
So, for example, in Ireland or Singapore, even China, they then provide special protections for these funds because they are the primary money generators for the entire aviation industry, correct?
Yes.
So at least the lessors.
And at the end of the day, you see, let me try to give you a parallel. Let's say you are a lessor and you have given me a car. You have given the money to me to buy a car. Now you can put a GPS tracker in my car or something to make sure that I don't run away with your car.
Correct.
But I can always figure out a GPS tracker, remove it, change the paint of the car. I can do it and I can run away. You can't do that with an aircraft, dude.
Absolutely.
The aircraft is monitored right at the satellite level. Where the hell will you run with the aircraft? Number one. Number two, look at the aircraft asset. An aircraft globally in the world cannot take off unless the aircraft is insured. That is a mandatory legal regulation in every country. God forbid something happens to your aircraft. God forbid there is a crash. Something happens. You've got insurance payout, which takes care of the aircraft value. Right? Then you have international laws, like we call the Cape Town Convention.
Okay.
The Cape Town Convention is a law, or is the sort of the guidelines, which is then sort of incorporated in every country into their own law, which very well defines that if something goes wrong with you as an airline, you as a lessor can go and take the aircraft from the lessee in whichever country it is sitting. That law is there, and the civil aviation regulation of every country is required to follow it. There might be here and there cases about some twisting of the law, but at the end of the day, the right will always remain with the lessor. The fact is that we always have this joke in aviation that the lessors look at their business as a king's table, and they don't want too many people on it, because when there are too many people, they lose their value.
Correct.
And there is this aura about aircraft leasing that, boss, you cannot do it. But we've got funds who manage real estate. The returns on the aircraft is better than a real estate returns consistently over the last 10 years. It's beaten the real estate business left, right and center. Your equity returns are above 26-27%, which is fantastic.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. People, for certain periods of time, if their wages aren't matching, they simply don't buy houses, but they still have to fly.
Correct.
So that money is currently being pumped. But this is for my own understanding, obviously the audience's understanding. But so again, what I'm hearing is, if India were to do something along these lines, saying if everything in GIFT City were to go well, what are some of the things they would have to ensure would have to go well for those operations to be smooth, which are not happening?
We really don't need to go too far.
Okay.
We just need to, in a lot of times we try to look at in the future, but all you need to do is just look at in the past. You look at real estate investment, right? India went through a huge growth phase where real estate was everywhere. People have made chunks of money in real estate. During those years, if you were a person who was about to build houses, did you put your own money in? No, you had someone backing it up. Every real estate you go, you will find some big banker sitting behind it, financing it, Kotak, HDFC, blah, blah, blah. Now, if none of these banks would have invested or would have said, we cannot invest in real estate, do you think we could have seen this real estate growth?
No.
Similar thing is in aircraft financing. Simple. Classic example, look at China. China faced the same problem. When China tried to set up their leasing company, they earmarked an area which was a special economic zone, like how India did a GIFT City. Well, tick mark, both the countries. What was the second most important step?
To actually get funders, to get investors.
Correct.
Yes.
How did they do it? The way that we are trying to approach it is, we are saying, well, don't worry, we are a huge economy. The minute we have started it, everyone will come and I'll put their money here. No, they will not.
Have they, again, I feel silly for asking because, I mean, granted, if even everyone does come invest, what benefits are those people getting to invest?
Correct?
Yes.
That's absolutely right. Huh? So, that's still a secondary part.
Yeah.
Today, and it's a very known thing. Everyone knew that India had a huge real estate market.
Yes.
But the international funding never ever will follow unless there is a track record of domestic funding. They need to see whether the domestic investors are making money. If they are, that's when the international follows. You don't expect international investors to come in and take a risk on a completely brand new thing in your country, in your jurisdiction. What they do is, if there is a domestic entity who has already taken the risk, the first step is the international one will come and buy the domestic one off because they see their track record, they see the returns.
Or buy a significant partnership.
Or in the domestic one.
Correct.
Right? No, that's not what we're planning in Gift City. In Gift City, we are assuming that we open the doors and every lessor in the world will say, I'm standing here, I will give you the money. Why? He can fund the same aircraft sitting out of Ireland, Singapore, Cayman Islands, Malaysia, China. Why will he come to India?
And they actually have protections in place. They have insurances in place. They are giving all sorts of tax breaks. They're doing everything possible to ensure that any form of foreign funding can happen, will happen.
Correct. In aircraft financing, the returns are levered. Because in aircraft financing, typically you are looking at 60 to 70% debt financing. Now, this company, if is situated in Ireland, China, Japan, blah, 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 is able to get a funding on debt funding at 5%. He comes to India, he gets it at 8%. Where will he get his funding from?
China.
If he's going to take it from China.
Correct.
If he's going to take the money from China, will China be very happy that you take my money and go and sit in India?
Absolutely not.
No, he will not. Simple. Right? What works in leasing? Now, it's not that you can, then you can say, Rohit, then, Singapore cost of funding is higher. China in the past, cost of funding was higher. So, how did these guys build it up? And a very classic example of China. The minute they set up the Gift City, not their Gift City, the Special Economic Zone, the first thing they did was they looked at all their national banks and private banks and set up a small consortium of banks. And they said this much amount of funds will be allocated from all these banks, which has to be utilized for aircraft financing. And this consortium of banks, so not everyone took the full risks. All of them put some money. They formed what we now call micro-investing kind. But at the same time, if you look at, like in India, we have this thing called Alternative Investment Fund, AIF, which is like everyone talks about it. That is the next big thing.
People love it, but they don't understand it.
Right?
Yes.
This is what was formed by the consortium of banks in China. What they realized was that because their cost of debt financing was high, instead of trying to take the money from other places, these banks in the consortium, they formed an AIF, and in that AIF, this was equity rather than debt, right? So they removed the debt portion from it so that the debt servicing that is required on a month-to-month basis goes out of the picture.
Correct.
So they started taking this approach because the underlying asset was a very liquid asset. Imagine if I tell you today that if you were in the business of buying and selling cars, and I give you two options, right? Buy a Maruti Suzuki car versus probably, let's say, the topmost model of Bugatti Veyron. And the only thing that you need to do is you need to be very sure that you'll be able to sell it in 5 years. Which is the car will you pick? Where you're very sure that whatever happens, I'll at least be able to sell it.
Maruti.
Right?
Absolutely Maruti.
So, the same thing is what they do. They looked at the aircraft assets, Airbus 320s, Boeing 737s, and they knew these are the assets which they can sell. At the end of the day, everyone wants to deploy assets. Or they understood the business from why people are getting into the financing. all these lessors which are there globally are basically running as funds. They are the fund managers. They are taking the money from different funds, running that money, returning that money, and as long as they keep doing this, they keep making money.
Correct.
Which means they will always be under the pressure to deploy capital because they are asking the capital. And when they are asking the capital, they have to deploy it to generate return.
Correct.
China guys understood it and said, you know what, invest in the asset. 5 years, 6 years down the lane, don't worry, sell it to someone. Someone will buy it because everyone needs to deploy asset.
It's an evergreen business.
They understood very clearly that we are still young, but what they did was they created the momentum. Now imagine you have a local bank in China, which has 2 or 3 aircraft, and he goes to the market and says, guys, I have some aircraft. This is the track record that I have got the money paid from the airline. I want to sell these aircraft to someone. The guy will bring in his capital, buy the aircraft off, and you got the money from the foreign capital. That's how the foreign capital comes in.
And the foreign capital seen that this domestic machination is working. People are benefiting off of it, and most importantly, there's domestic confidence in the machinery at hand.
Correct. And that is how the money, that is the key gear that Gift City is not focusing at. They are expecting everything to be done by others without creating that ecosystem, understanding that it cannot be done everything by others. And it's not a joke. Again, as I said, you have to go back in history to look at some of the basic things that were done. In India, in the banking sector, there is a very interesting regulation. You might be a very big bank which is operating in India, but then you are given certain targets of that you need to have some high risk agriculture loans. You need to have loans to poor people or certain sections of the economy or something. And maybe you as a private bank, you don't want to take that risk directly.
Correct.
So what happens? You have these small cooperative banks who take that risk and then sell that portfolio to you at the end of the year for you to meet the yearly requirement. Right? This mechanism has proven to be successful. You have to just use the same damn thing in a different business model, but it's still going to work. The only difference is your banks have to be the cooperative bank, and the private bank is going to be a foreign investor.
Correct.
Or a foreign lessor who will buy off your portfolio. It's as simple as that. But that is the piece that we have missed.
But is there a reason like they're ignoring the obvious thing to do that is in front of them?
Oh, now you're touching a touchy subject.
I mean, I'll just say this from my end. I mean, I'm very glad that Prime Minister Modi is meeting all of these foreign leaders, shaking new hands every day of the week. He's, I believe, also received the most state level medals. I don't know what the term is, but the most medals out of any foreign dignitary in the world. But I'm pretty sure that also doesn't mean that it directly translates to that much amount of business confidence, especially within India, for these foreign people to start investing or throwing money into it.
The case is very similar to the fact that you have your top leader in a company who's got a very clear vision, right? Now, let's say you talk about, Mahindra, you talk about Facebook, you talk about Apple, Steve Jobs being a great leader. But one of the things that happens is a great leader also requires honest, transparent feedback. If the honest, transparent feedback is blocked, the whole system of him making a decision, making changes, getting the improvement, get a feedback, that closes down. I think I don't know whether it is the fear of failure or the fear of not being successful in what they have done. I think the feedback system has sort of become...
it's been blocked off.
It's been blocked off. It has become more of as long as you agree with me, even if you don't know anything, you are still a great guy.
It's a yes man thing happening. It's a...
Kind of. And that creates a very interesting challenge for the business, because you see, everyone is looking at like these kind of things like Gift City or whatever. Everyone is looking at it very eagerly as to what your next step is going to be. And the first thing as a leader you need to do, if you are a head of a committee or head of such kind of a system, is identify who are going to be the people who are going to give you constructive feedback and has enough knowledge in that area to give you feedback. Now, if tomorrow you are the leader who's supposed to make this call or make the policy decision, and you surround yourself with people who have never been in the industry, who don't know jack shit how it works, have never seen that, how many leasing companies existed in India?
Absolutely.
Nothing. How many people in India are working for global leasing companies in senior position? Very few of them, and they are not even in India. And now you've made a committee which is made up of Indians who have never seen that in life, who are giving you the guidance on how to make a policy to make it a leasing hub. Dude, they've never even raised money for their own charity. They are going to raise money for you worth $100 million, $100 billion to finance aircraft.
Not happening.
So that is where the challenge is. And I mean, I know, I do know, and I've seen this in certain places where these are the people who drive feedback to the policy. So, at the end of the day, garbage in, garbage out. I mean, that's the kind of feedback you're going to get. That's the kind of output that you're going to give. You can't help it.
I mean, it's a shame in some ways. Let's go back to your example from last week. Let's go back to Bablu Garage. Let's go to Bablu Garage for a second. I wouldn't go to Bablu Garage to get advice on if I should buy a Lamborghini or if I should buy a Bugatti, for example.
Correct.
I would go to Bablu Garage to understand if I should buy a Santro or if I should buy a Maruti 800.
Correct.
It is not even a case of apples and oranges. It is trying to sell fruits in a fish market.
Yeah. Because, but you're absolutely right. Because their concept of, and again, I'm trying to bring this point back, is because the people sitting on the larger table, the big table of the lessors, they have created this aura that this is a very technically it's rocket science technicality to understand how aircraft leasing works. Bullshit. At the end, it is a pure financing business. How would you finance a real estate?
Do these people exist in India?
No. Are Indians there? Yes.
Yeah.
Indians are actually holding some senior positions.
But they're not here. They're
not in India.
They're all abroad.
Yes, because that is where the business is done. Right? If today you have funds in India who are investing in the stock market, investing in real estate, investing in different businesses in India, they are present in India. Right? Because they are a fund who is based out of India with a focus on this. So someone in India needs to set up that fund. And the regulations of setting it up are there. Everything is there. But you have to understand that equity does not come unless there is a local financing system in place. And for the local financing system, the banks have to come in. You have to have a very clear mandate. If you look at the fact, mutual funds or real estate, sometime back, I remember it was a very interesting conversation that the whole investment in real estate got very interesting when they started this tax deduction, ATCC, which was given in your income tax if you had made investments in equity linked ELSS or certain funds, mutual funds, which were focused on real estate and stuff like that.
Okay.
So there were certain benefits that were given in your income tax when you used to do those kind of investments. That is what started the whole generation of mutual funds. People started investing more money, other kind of stuff. So if you even to improve a business or to accelerate a business, you needed to create financial incentive for someone to do it. Now, in one way you can do financial incentive. The other way is you need to use the local business to put a certain direction. That boss, I need you to invest in this. And here's the joke. We are about 700 aircraft today. Our aviation industry pans back to 1992 when all the private airlines started coming up.
Correct. When the economy opened up.
We are today sitting in 2025.
Yes.
Let's say 6-7 years back, we finally realized that, we need to have a gift city to finance aircraft. So there have been certain financing transactions taken place in Gift City. But if you look at really on paper, it is like a registered office. It's like if you were flying an airline into India and you said, we are pushing you imagine you are like a very big international airline, American Airlines, something extremely big airline, and you finally decide to fly into India, and I'm really putting pressure on you. I need to show that you've done something in India. You say, okay, you know what? There is a shop outside the office. I will take that on rent and I will call it American Airline office. And the next day there is headlines: American Airlines invests in India finally. Right? That's how that transaction has actually taken place. The money doesn't belong to us. They just set up an office because there's just too much amount of pressure. So they say, okay, I have done financing from Gift City. That is not the objective. The KPI that they are measuring is the wrong KPI.
Yeah, I don't think they have KPIs in the first place. They're simply marking it off name value. Okay, this person is here, good, mission accomplished. This person is here, good, mission accomplished, and that's it.
Done. Now, contrary to that, Vietnam, total fleet probably about 200 aircraft, one third. Aviation growth has happened since 2011. Yes. When Vietjet started off, that whole growth in aviation took place. Last 2 years, the government has supported local banks to finance aircraft. Local banks have ended up financing almost about 8 aircraft in Vietnam. They did not require all that shosha of first setting up a special economic zone, then this. What was the reason for that? And this is where it becomes extremely interesting. The fact is that in the aircraft leasing business, the power of the lessor, because it's a internationally governed contract, the power of the lessor is very high. Now imagine you are the head of a country of 1 billion population. You are talking about 1,000 aircraft flying in the future. And 85% or 80% of those aircraft are controlled by a foreign party sitting in Ireland.
Leased, controlled,
Leased
and
aircraft.
everything else. Yes.
Right? The day he wants to pull the plug on you,
He can.
Which means your air transport
Is shut off.
is at the helm of international financiers which are sitting outside your jurisdiction.
I wouldn't even say helm, I would say mercy. It is at their absolute mercy.
And this is the thing that Vietnam understood it extremely well during COVID. And the amount, there are 2 new airlines coming up in Vietnam. Both of them are buying the aircraft. They are getting the support from the local financiers to buy that aircraft. They're not idiots. They're buying the whole thing. The local bank is buying the mortgage or is mortgaging the aircraft and then trading that mortgage with international banks or international companies who know aircraft financing. But the effective control is still within the country.
Correct.
Which means they now have far more control on that aircraft if something happens in a geopolitical scenario. In India, your air transport is at the helm of completely foreign parties. You miss one payment, he will send you a letter tomorrow, ground the aircraft, all your, story and newspaper articles of 12%, 14% growth of aviation comes halting down in one single day.
Correct.
We saw it in COVID. We saw after COVID. After COVID, you've seen the condition of Go Air shut down. Why? Lessors grounded the airline. You look at Kingfisher. Kingfisher was grounded by the lessors. Look at Jet Airways. Jet Airways was grounded by the lessors. SpiceJet is currently still trying to figure out some way of keeping their head above the water, but that's again being controlled by the lessor. The lessor can pull the plug at any given point of time.
And they are in all sorts of muddy waters right now.
So, the critical value of aircraft financing and aircraft leasing is now all the more important because people are realizing the impact it can have on a country. When the Russia-Ukraine war happened, there was immediately sanctions on Russia.
Correct.
The problem was a lot of aircraft were leased aircraft, which were leased out of Europe, flying in Russia. Now imagine, the minute there is a sanction, that whole aircraft fleet has to be grounded.
Yes.
And that started one of the largest cases in the world where the lessors and the country, because now it was not the airline,
it was the lessors in country
and the country took a call saying, I'm not going to ground the aircraft and I'm not going to send the aircraft back to you. I will operate the aircraft I don't care who you are. It's my country. And then the lessors went and filed a case in the court because they made an insurance claim on the insuring company. Insuring company said, I'm not going to give you the insurance. So they now had a huge court battle in UK, which has now gone in the favor of the lessor. So the insurers have lost money. It's also in the interest of insurers now to try and see that the lessors or the financiers are in that country, because that reduces their risk.
Correct.
So these are the areas that really needs to be factored in or looked in when you're looking at the aircraft leasing as a business.
Okay, but what if tomorrow, like, India actually goes to war with the real country, not Pakistan? Pakistan's a joke right now, and I'll stand by the statement. Let's say India goes to war with a serious country, and that serious country also, say, has lessors, and there are lessors from other countries whom India has leased airplanes with. Does India have the cojones to say, I am not going to ground the planes, do whatever you want to?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all, because the challenge between Russia and India is that we are still so dependent on the international market, especially in our air transport sector, that apart from airports and people that we produce, we do not have control over anything else. Neither do we control the fuel. Neither do we control the maintenance of the aircraft. Forget about maintenance. We don't even have a company in India today which can even own aircraft spare parts. Okay, you go to a Papua New Guinea, they have a company which owns aircraft spare parts and can provide aircraft spare parts if required.
Yeah,
India doesn't have it. Okay, so we don't control the fuel. We don't control the maintenance. We don't control the aircraft spare parts. Dude, we are dependent for our even the aircraft, except that, as I said, except for the population that is required to fill the aircraft and the people to fly the aircraft. Except for these two, we don't have anything else.
So India's only good at pumping babies and keeping the population right here.
That's where we are. We built airports, fantastic airports, right? Regional connectivity scheme. I mean, it might have some other areas, but again, regional connectivity scheme, blah, 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 went on. We built up 100, 200 airports, brilliantly. What did we do? And a small aircraft like ATR could land there. We said, no. Let's make it bigger. Let us land an Airbus 320 on it. You spend hundreds of crores of money to build a 320. The small guy who was operating ATR and making a little bit money, you killed him because another airline put one 320. This guy's business is done, finished. And now the new guy brings one flight a day and you expect it to break even your investment of an airport infrastructure with one flight a day. These are the kind of decisions that we've really missed the bus. And I understand that we have been trying to get it back, but
I think we're refusing to even get on a bus because we don't want to admit the fact that we missed the bus in the first place.
Yes. And today is the time that, okay, you know what, one of the good things that what we admire in some of our leadership people is the fact that they can take criticism. But somehow that part is not coming down when it comes down to the, people who are running it.
Correct.
Right? I mean, just take the criticism. As long as they can at least have, first of all, identify what the business is about. You remember this famous dialogue from this movie which was made on McDonald's.
The founder.
Yes. And there is this guy who sits with him and says, "You don't understand the business in which you are.
Real estate business.
You are in the real estate business, not in that one." The same thing. Aircraft leasing is not a technical business. It's a pure financing. It's a banking and a fund business. Don't sit with technical people to learn how this part of the business is run. You need to find these set of people to tell you how that business is set up. It's a pure financing transaction. Technicals are jokers who are required to ensure that go check the aircraft, inspect the aircraft, write some paper on it, that's it. They are not the people who will tell you how to set up a leasing industry.
Correct.
These are the people who are going to set up the leasing industry. So they have to be the people who are supposed to give you feedback.
I mean, there's so many common themes you're touching on today, which we touched on last week too, that India has provided absolutely no incentive for anyone to run an airline. Now we're learning India has provided no incentive for someone to even finance someone buying an airline or buying an aeroplane. and actually making money out of it. They're just like, yo, we created this sector for you, this grand, amazing area, no taxes, whatever. Just throw your money into it and we'll be good. And that's not how it works. It's always supposed to be a quid pro quo.
Correct.
There is only a quid here, and that quid is going down as far as anyone's concerned.
Yeah, but that's so true. Yeah, I still remember some of the launches that I've seen. I've read the newspapers, when the Gift City transactions were coming up. And I still remember there was this big announcement that, some 2 aircraft have been first time purchased and leased from Gift City. Well, sort of just look at the aircraft registration and look at the ownership. This is the interesting part. In car, you can still try to fudge some numbers and say, okay, no, I am the owner of the car and you are the owner of the car. In aircraft, you can't do that. Because aircraft internationally are registered in a database.
Correct.
No aircraft can be handed over or operated unless it is registered in that database. You open that up and you realize, hey, this aircraft belongs to another company in Middle East who has then leased it to an Indian entity who has no idea. This is an Indian entity, so they have taken the lease in and they have leased it out to another airline. And now they have suddenly called themselves as the lessors. We understand the leasing. No, bullshit. It belongs to someone else. All you've done is trading. It's like I'm the agent and you want to put a house on rent. You are the owner of the house and you've given me the agreement to put someone on rent, and all I have done is sort of taken the house on rent from you and now signed a rent agreement and I'm saying I am the house owner. You're still the house owner.
In all operations, in all businesses, in any environment, the middleman never takes credit for anything.
Yeah.
What the middleman does is takes his quiet share out of the entire thing and walks away, does another thing and walks away.
But that's
here we're taking credit for being the middleman, and that is ridiculous.
Not only the credit, after becoming as a middleman, after taking the credit, I am the guy who sits on the table and advises everyone how to run the aircraft leasing business. You're like, dude, you're kidding me or what?
Oh,
that's garbage in, garbage out.
No, this is genuinely insane though. This is
that's a fact.
I mean, what are we tooting our horns about?
We didn't require a middleman in Vietnam. There is no middleman.
Correct,
but there are already 4 companies which are owning aircraft, financing aircraft to local airlines. They didn't require all of this shit. All they understood was what is the business is. The business is financing. Who should be the people running it? Call the banks in. Tell me, what do you need to do this? Bank said, this is what we need to do this. Okay, done. Next. Go ahead. What we have not achieved in the last 5 years, they achieved it in 1 year. No shusha, no hiha, this, that, no, let's do this. Nothing.
But this label chasing habit, this habit of sensationalizing everything, it's not working in a favor. It's just us fooling ourselves that we're doing something grand.
Exactly.
We're not.
Exactly. I mean, see, Gift City in some places has been a great boon. If I talk about from a government, as an overall perspective, if I say that Gift City has been a great success for shipbuilding, yes. Again, shipbuilding, capital intensive, requires technology, requires a place where, so much amount of capital can be put in building a ship. Yes. Because shipbuilding is strategic from a defense perspective. And as well as from being able to control the trade, because we have so much amount of import, export, fuel coming in, stuff like that. So yes, that is there. But, then just call a spade, right? The same place can really give you another big advantage. In our case, what happens is, we are like that cameraman, right? So, 5 people start the race. So when let's say a Gift City starts, it is touted as leasing head, some banking, new banking regulations, amazing foreign exchange trading, blah blah. So they will create like 5 players who are going to now run the race. And then as a government, as a policy, our job is you sit with a cameraman. Whoever is ahead, we forget about everyone else. We only follow with him. But you forget that everyone started running. The whole money that was put was for all 4 of them. If you are able to create a collective environment where all the players could run at the same speed or its full potential, the net output is going to be much, much higher. But you cannot have that, the minute one takes off, forget about the others, let's just focus on this guy. That's not how it works.
I love this. I feel like this is a callback to another thing we did last week. This one is about not just focusing on what's actually working. So when we talked about airline, people who run airlines, for example, they shouldn't focus on what worked. They should focus on what did not work and choose not to do that. But in India's case, I feel like when it comes to leasing, they need to ensure that everyone, all of these 5 factors, 5, 10, 15, how many other factors there are, they all have an equal advantage at growing.
Yeah.
And even if they don't have an equal advantage, make it unequal. But so at least the ones which are staggering can be pushed forward to more of an equal pace, which is not happening at all. They get one win and they're like, okay, fine, we're going to sit on our hands now. We have won the race. This is it. We have won the championship. The trophy is ours.
Okay.
The trophy is self-made. No one gave it to us.
That's right.
No, we're in a competition against ourselves, and that same competition we happen to be losing.
That's the challenge that we're facing today.
It's tragic though, but I'm still glad to hear that Gift City is still working for a lot of things, but I feel like things can be better and they should be better.
It's a great concept. That concept is correct. It's the first step in the right direction.
Correct.
But then somewhere, you are letting it just sort of becoming focused on one area, completely forgetting about the second one, right? Or the third one, for that matter. But that's a challenge that this country has. It's just got, I think, just too many losers to focus on one single winner. They can't help it. Regional connectivity scheme I was telling you about before, where I criticized that the economics don't make sense. Yes, economics did not make sense. There was a way to build it. And I'll give you the same example, the same banking method. You could have done that. It's a proven, time-tested, proven method of making a regional connectivity work. What it did help us was it allowed us to build airstrips in certain remote areas where under the influence of commercial operations, which could have been challenging if Indian government would have done that because they're too close to the border.
Correct. So it did provide connectivity. So in case there were emergencies, in case there was something else, that particular situation could have been solved or at least attended to really quick.
Yeah.
But when it came to the actual fact of the matter, problem which needed to be solved, it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And something that was actually working I believe you described a small player, it just wiped them off the market.
Okay. That's what's happened. That is not what, and as I said, you go to a doctor with a stomach pain, right? And he looks at your leg and says, as long as you can walk, there is no stomach problems. And dude, you're checking the wrong KPI for the wrong objective.
All right. That was a good break. So, in summary, in conclusion, everything that we discussed today, India needs to pull up its socks. No, but when we go from the beginning, most airlines that you see don't actually own a lot of the planes. In cases like Asia, most of Asia, India especially, about 50 to 60% of all the airlines that they have in their fleet are actually leased by entities known as lessors. The first one, the most prominent one, came out of Ireland. Yeah. And Ireland actually built a whole area within the country in order to actually help lessors, and then the money that they got from investments in the form of banks, they actually developed a lot of rules and put in essentially protections for these people to keep putting in money but actually get a lot out of it. But when it comes to the lesser business, when it comes to India and India actually coming to own their own airlines and the planes in the fleet, that has not been the case really, because there are no incentives for foreign investors to actually put their money in, especially in a place like Gift City in Gujarat.
That's right.
And what India is trying to do is now follow a cookie cutter approach to essentially implement what worked for someone else within our own economy, which I don't think should be the case.
That's right.
And at least from the top management, the aim is clear. They do want to make something good out of this country. They do want all the people present to make a lot of money, especially a lot of money, as much money as they can make. But when it comes to the middle management, the feedback loop has been broken, to say the least.
That's true.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think my only last point is going to be that air transport will continue to be a very, very important sector for the country, not only domestically, but also to connect the country internationally for global trade. And you cannot have such an important sector being completely dominated and controlled by foreign parties, which in any given point of time can
Pull the plug.
jeopardize
Yeah.
your overall transport industry. So that's my only thing, and it's not rocket science at all.
Absolutely. I feel like the lessor business has been shrouded in mystery by the people themselves, because they don't want other people at the table, because why would you want someone else eating off of your table, right? So it's as simple as you wanting to play with the toy, but making sure that you actually own the toy. So the next day, the neighbor doesn't come and say, "Oh, hey, that's my toy. I'm going to take it back." And especially when it comes to India, and because it is still a burgeoning, it is still a modernizing economy. It's not completely modern yet. It is still growing. What it means is that if by chance a conflict happens or a big economic sort of situation does occur, India will be put in a place where it does not still have the saying or the might or the power, such as the country like Russia, to say that, you know what, screw you, we're still going to keep flying the planes. I don't think we're still yet
yeah.
there, but we should get there. And I think we should begin at least by securing ourselves within the aviation sector and actually owning the planes that we fly through the airlines that we actually have in our country. But that was us. That was me, Ayush Mishra from AviaCast, and Mr. Rohit Tomar. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. It has been eventful. This discussion has been educational.
Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, I look forward to the next interesting discussion.
Absolutely. I feel like every time you do come on, we always discuss something that is not being discussed absolutely anywhere else. And that is both a pleasure and a joy.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. And for everyone else, thank you for joining us today. I wish you a good morning, day, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you might be. And I hope you have a fantastic time. Thank you for joining, and see ya. Bye-bye.